Yes, so you've heard. I was depressed as a child. I was anxious when I was being born. I didn't know whether I'd find the way out or not, and it is only in recent years that through mindfulness and CBT that I've learnt a new way of thinking, and that's really helped my way of feeling. And so what you're learning about that, what you do about, is really important. The medication, my psychiatrist would say, is what keeps me well. That's a really little bit of what is important in my life. And knowing me, because I miss my mania, I will go off my medication again sometime in the future. I've told my boss, the commissioner, that I won't do it until I'm no longer on the commission. So we'll wait and see whether the urge to have my mania becomes too much in that time. But it'll be interesting to see how well known the commission becomes if I experience mania. Okay. Stigma and discrimination. You hear all the time nowadays talk about, the stigma, there's so much stigma around mental illness. Well, so much of the time it's actually discrimination, and we ought to have some guts and call it what it is and bring people to answer for it. So I have been discriminated against all of my life, but it is only in getting the sense of humour that I've got some guts to speak up for it. I do a lot of work for Rotary, and are there some Rotarians in the room? Well, you guys ought to be joining Rotary. Thank you very much. I was recently appointed as a Paul Dane Fellow, so you know what that means. Yeah, it's a big deal, eh? But Rotary sent me all around Australia. I was the first consumer speaker for Beyond Blue. And they picked me up out of my work from Rotary. And they send me all around Australia speaking at conferences, very large conferences, much bigger than these, and speaking at their forums. And the Rotarians treat me like I'm a queen. They do, and they know everything about me. And I arrive, and there's, an entourage of people making me feel like I'm really special. And they drive me in the newest car that belongs in that club to wherever it is I'm going, So they wanted me to speak out at Hay, which meant flying into Griffith Airport and being driven out through the Hay Plains. Anybody been out through there? What's out there? Nothing. What a hole. What a hole. Canadians, don't bother. So I flew into Griffith. Not literally, like, I'm crazy, right, but I didn't fly. Okay. And I got off the plane, and there was a Rotarian standing there with a plaque, Fay Jackson, and I walked up and I said, "Hello, I'm Fay Jackson," and he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "No, you're not. I've got a photo of her, and you look nothing like her." And I thought, they've sent him an old photo. And I said, "Does she have long dark hair and is even fatter than I am now?" And he went, "Yes, that's right." And I said, "Yes, that's me. I've gone back to being blonde and I've lost a little bit of weight." And he said, "Well, come on, you're late." And I said, "Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't fly that plane any faster." And we went out, and he had a white 4-wheel drive Land Cruiser parked there. And I coveted that car because I'd burnt the engine out of my car doing some gardening. But I don't think I'll have time to tell you that story. It's a good one. 20 minutes is so tiny, I'm used to having longer. Anyway, so he opened the car doors, and that new car smell wafted out, and I swooned, And he threw my bag up, and we headed out of Griffith to go out through the Hay Plains, which is like, it's desert, it's... And we left Griffith just as the sun went down, and it becomes dark very quickly out there. And I could feel he was cranky, you know. And he said, and the Rotarians usually know everything about me, my background, what weight I was when I was born, like everything. And they know what I'm there for, you know. But he turned to me just as we'd left Griffith behind, and he said, well, Fay, I know you're here to speak at the conference, but I don't know what you're here to speak about. What are you here to speak about? I said, oh, don't you know, Keith? No. Well, I'm here to speak about mental health. Well, could we do with you out here? I tell you, a great load of freaks and lunatics we got running around out here. Complete spazoids and schizos, you know. You can't trust a one of them. I'll stab you in the back as soon as look at you. We ought to round them all up and stick them on an island so they can kill each other off like we used to with the lepers. Oh, did you hear me say that word? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I said the F word quietly. Sorry. I've done it, you know, across the laps of 3 men sitting in the front. Didn't look good. So, anyway, I've heard that kind of crap all my life, you know? But I hadn't heard so much coming out of the mouth of one man who was a Rotarian. It really surprised me, you know. And I was a tad manic, hyper, not fully fledged, right? So I wasn't doing, but I had all these things going on in my mind, what I'd like to do to him, you know. And then he said, well, Fay, so are you a doctor? And I said, no, Keith, not a doctor. No, are you a psychiatrist? As if psychiatrists aren't doctors, but we do wonder, don't we? No, Keith, not a psychiatrist. No, are you a psych nurse? No, Keith, not a psych nurse. A social worker? No, Keith, not even a social worker. Well, then what are you? Keith, I'm the nutter. And he freaks out, right? And he's wedged himself against the car door. He's driving like this. His eyes are bugging out. We didn't need the headlights to see where we were going. The moon was reflecting off them, and he's shaking more than me. And I thought, yeah, you go on, you bugger, you suffer. So I just sat there looking at him. And I could feel him, he was really scared, and he really thought he was going to die out there that night. Anyway, I let him suffer like that for a while. I kind of breathed heavier and harder. And then, I can see I'm not going to get time to tell you the gardening story, sorry. And then I thought, I better put him out of his misery. Not kill him. Not. When we talk about putting them out of their misery, we mean put them down. It's not, yeah. Not kill him. Just come back to you now. Just talk to him, you know. And I knew he was a farmer, and so I said, I understand you're a farmer, Keith. And he said, yes, I am. And I said, oh, I grew up on a farm. Did you? Like crazy people grow up somewhere? What kind of farm? Beef, cattle and potatoes, Keith. All right. What do you do? Oh, sort of mixed cropping and stuff. All right. And I thought, you know, I wanted him to relax a bit. So I started talking to him about farming issues. And we talked about the deforestation, the reforestation, the salinity problems, what happened when the Rotaract, the big milking factory out there, started up and then it shut down, and people were out of work, and so there were a lot of marital breakdowns and suicides and blah, blah, blah. And that got us talking about mental health, okay? Got us back around there. And he said, look, Fay, I don't understand. I mean, just how sick are you? Because you seem quite normal to me. And I said, well, Keith, it's like this, you know. And it was back when I believed that it was just about chemical imbalance in the brain. I no longer believe that. I believe it's all sorts of things, like trauma and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I said, well, Keith, it's like this. You know, they think that people like me aren't producing enough serotonin, dopamine, noradrenaline, those kind of... And I explained it, you know, how that works. And I said, but we're all individuals, Keith. So 100 people with schizophrenia have it in 100 different ways. 100 people with bipolar have it in 100 different ways. 100 people with depression have it in 100 different ways. We're all unique, you know. But they put us into the same basket cases, the same basket. So all schizophrenics are the same. All manic depressives are the same. Well, we're not, you know. And I said, and I'm unique. Like, if you say the word kangaroo, and I knew he'd say it, and he went, kangaroo? And I went, Keith, it's Beelzebub, Keith, take me to Adelaide, oh! And he freaked out, and he pulled that car up, and he jumped out, and he's running across the road, trying to get away from me, tripping over the roadkill, got himself caught up in the barbed wire fence, you know. That guy thought he was going to die out there that night, and I don't like to let people down. Let's call it what it is. My family, is it about genetics? I don't know. That's my beautiful brother. I lost my beautiful brother 16 years ago. He too had bipolar. He told me that he would take care of me, that he'd always be there for me. I was psychotic a lot. My brother was mostly just moods, but I have psychosis with my bipolar. And he said he'd always be there. That's me. It's my little sister and my brother, they're alike. But Pete and I were alike, and we were kindred spirits. These are my daughters. This daughter has bipolar. That's my Anna girl. And if you go on our website, you can see her talking about us. This is my husband, long-suffering George. People ask, how does your husband put up? How does he cope? Well, when I'm depressed, he plays a lot of golf, and when I'm manic, he takes a lot of Barocca. And these are my little grandsons. This is my son-in-law. He hasn't married her yet. These are my little grandsons, and this little one here is super sensitive as well. Just how I was when I started, just how my brother was, just how my daughter is. Is it in our genetic makeup? Probably. Is it in our upbringing? Probably. Is it in our trauma? Probably. When I'm very depressed, I can't read and write. I've got 2 uni degrees now, but it affects my cognition so much that I can't do anything. My symptoms are severe. My hair falls out, my teeth become sore and loose. I feel like I'm walking on broken glass. When I'm manic, I do amazing things, which the clock's telling me I don't have time to tell you about. I love my mania and I miss it so much. I really miss it. And I pity anybody that hasn't had it. It's a wonderful feeling. My husband thinks so too. I thought I was a victim to my mental illness until I stopped being afraid of it. A life lived in fear is a life half lived. And I will ask you today to stop being afraid of if you might fail, of what is your disabilities. And I'm not talking about whether you've got mental illness or whether you're in a wheelchair or things that you don't think you're good at or that you've actually thought are a detrimental aspect of you, whatever. Try and flip it around and see what's good about that. My husband is the most laid-back person I know, and I love that about him. He's the biggest procrastinator I know. It's the same thing, a different way of looking at it. So I've got mental illness. What am I going to do with it? How can I use it? Is there a reason for me having it? Why was I born? I was sitting at an airport, and a little girl came in, and her name was Maddie, and her grandmother was telling me about how much fear and anxiety she has about flying. Extreme. And this this child's whole life was suffering deeply because of her anxiety about it. She couldn't learn to read and write. Her relationships with her parents had broken down, and she had to fly every second Saturday down to Sydney to see her dad, every second Friday, and she hated it. And she hated her father, and she couldn't learn, and she had a lot of physical ailments that they could find no cause for. It was stress. So we got on that plane together. I'll make it very short. And I talked my way in. It's a good story, and you're missing out on that too. But I talked my way into sitting beside Maddie, and we took off. And Maddie was freaking, absolutely freaking out. And she's going, get me off, I hate this, I hate my daddy, I don't want to see him anyway, get me off here, I hate it. And I said, Maddie, darling, I love flying. She said, yes, but you're mad, Nana told me. You see, you've missed a big part of the story, right? And I said, yes, darling, I am mad, but, you know, even mad people can be really nice and helpful. And I said, Maddie, and the plane banks, and she's going, let me off, get me off, bring that plane down. And I said, Maddie, what's your favourite bird? She said, what? And I said, what's your favourite bird, Maddie? She said, cockatoo. And I said, right, come on, Maddie. All right, we're going to fly to Sydney. Come on, Maddie, up we go, fly with me, Maddie, you know. And she's like this, you know, and then she says magpie, and I'm, oh, come on, Maddie, we're going to fly to Sydney, you know. Little plane, about 30 people, most of the miners, fucking. And the miners start making bird calls and everything too. And we fly there doing that. I wouldn't have done that if I was too ashamed and embarrassed to be who I am, including my mental illness. You'll never work. You'll never be a valuable member of society. Be realistic about what you can be. Whose realism is it? Theirs or mine? It's my realism. 2-day-a-week advocate. You can have that job because you're crazy. In a psych hospital. Within 2 years, I was a director of that service, and I'm now the CEO of my own company and a deputy commissioner. I live today to make a difference. I live today because I have meaning in my life, not because of the pills that I take. I live today not just because of my family, but because I believe I was born with mental illness to make a difference with that. And last year I was very ill, and I'm about to have another operation. I have a very severe blood clotting disorder. Blood disorder, I bleed and clot, and just, you know, bipolar, eh? And I was in a coma, and while I was in a coma, I had people from Rotary clubs that I do a lot of work with calling me saying, come on, Fay, come on, keep going. You haven't finished yet. Come on, Fay. It wasn't my family that I saw there. It was those messengers that I've worked with in mental health. Take everything that you are, including what you think is not good about you, and put it in a different context and see what you can do with it. Stop making excuses. Don't be afraid and do it. If you think that I'm not afraid when I'm doing those things, you're so wrong. I used to drive to work every morning crying, thinking, when will they realise that I can't do this? And crying when I drove home because I had the keys now. And my brothers and sisters were still back in there. This time I was out and they were in. And I will live as long as I can. And if I go into a coma again on the 26th of November, I hope and pray that those messengers will be there saying, come on, Fay, come on. Do not wait for you to be in a coma before you put your best foot forward and use every part of you to give to the world what you were born to do. Open yourself to it. Open yourself to find out what you're here for and do it. A life lived in fear is a life half lived. I'm going to give it my all. Please do that as well.